Today's guest is a police officer who has spent 30 years in service. He is an emergency manager and risk assessor with the Volunteer Firefighting Service. He is based at the Academy, where he trains the next generation of officers, running quality assurance and training courses that shape how police show up in our communities. But here's what caught my attention about this man. In a job where the first rule is trust no one because your job is to keep people safe, he has somehow held on to something rare. A belief that one police officer in one interaction with one member of public can create a real and lasting impact. He doesn't walk up to a situation and see a criminal. He tries to see the person behind the circumstance. And that balance between the training that tells you to stay guarded and the humanity that tells you to stay open is exactly what we are going to unpack today. This is not a conversation about law enforcement. This is a conversation about a mindset built over 30 years, shaped by how he was raised and carried into every single shift. Welcome to Human After All. I am Sabika Jasmine. Today, we go behind the badge and into the mind and heart of the human wearing it. Welcome, John, and thanks for being here on the podcast today.
Thank you, Sabika. It's good being here.
So I just gave a glimpse of what we are discovering or going to discover today and just shared something about you. But how would you describe yourself? That's a tricky question.
It is a tricky question.
It's not an interview.
I think quite complex, but I think everybody is. You know, I think I look at myself and I'm in my mid-50s now, and the thing that I see is that certain people in certain settings regard me differently. So my family regard me differently from the people at work. The people at work regard me differently from the people on the street. The people that I meet doing my job treat me differently from how my family treat me. You are a different person to each different group. So describing myself, that's a long story.
But we can share about the impact you're making as well. So what you're doing yourself, who you are, and what impact you're making to the world around you or the people around you, which is your world.
I think that's probably one of the motivators, one of the reasons why I am who I am and how I've developed into a human being at this age. I was raised from an early age with some fundamental values and principles and things, respect, manners, a little bit Tommy type stuff, treat everybody the way you'd like to be treated yourself. Walk a mile in the other man's shoes first before you make any judgments and stuff. And don't judge. You can contextualise a set of circumstances or contextualise a person's behaviour or whatever, and react or respond accordingly. If a person's behaving peacefully, then you don't, because you're a human, you don't perceive a threat from that peaceful person. But if a person is behaving violently, you perceive them a different way. But by the same token, I think I saw a thing recently that behaviour is a symptom, not the cause. So you need to look deeper than just the behaviour itself. I'm very very reflective and introspective. I think about things a lot.
But how do you? That's a good point. You touched behavior and not just their demeanor. It's the behavior and go deep inside that behavior. Why that behavior? So, but how will you judge that or understand that? Not judge. That's not the right word. Understand that in the first meet. So, first meet is always a perception driven by something in the past or past experience.
I was gifted with an open mind and educated to have one as well. It was always reinforced by predominantly my mum as to, and not from a negative point of view, but never assume that you know everything. You know, there's always going to be something that you don't know or you don't understand. And that wasn't a derogatory comment. It wasn't like you're never going to know. What it was about was to foster a level of curiosity, you know, actually be interested in the other person, actually think a bit more and, you know, walking in that other person's shoes in a real practical application, you know, actually do that. That dovetailed well with my job because that ability to look deeper kept me safe and those around me as well, because you could actually, they call it active listening, you know, that if you turn your radar on and prick your ears up and have a good listen and not just hear, but actually listen, you will get prompts and indicators as to what might be the bottom of the problem. And being a police officer, you're there to solve the problem to start off with. The reason why people call police is the fact that they've lost control.
Yes, yeah. That's
So,
right.
you know, we don't get invited to picnics and barbecues where we get invited to the horrible situations that people don't know what to do.
Yeah, that's
So-
right. That's right. But you touched on your childhood as well. And I was just thinking about my toddler now, who I asked just yesterday, that what do you want to become when you grow up? I just asked out of fluke. Like, she's just 2.5. She will not know. But she said doctor. And then I related something they might be doing at her ELC. She just said doctor. I'm like, oh, okay. So what was your moment when you decided to be in police? Is that what your parents are as well? Or
No.
how did you choose your career to be? It's great responsibility.
Yeah, that question has come up pointedly in the past few months, actually. And I think sometimes I definitely made the choice to be a police officer. Or it could be something else if I wanted to. But I think I was almost destined. I don't subscribe to destinies, but I think if there was ever a path that I was on, it led directly to policing. On a lighter level, I lived 3 kilometres from the police academy. I remember a core memory of mine was getting lost at the police academy, which is hilarious because I was educated back then that if you ever get lost, you find a police officer. At the time, there were like hundreds. So I wasn't actually lost as I thought I was. But there's always been that imprint. My parents had great respect for the police department or police officers in general. My dad's friend was a police officer who didn't visit very regularly, but when he did, he was always a really nice guy. And I was educated that, like I said, if you get in any trouble, you find a police officer in uniform.
Yeah.
Stranger danger was a thing back then. But yeah, I was modelled
Yeah.
that policing was a good thing. But
Yeah.
I think later on that translated to problem solving. I wanted to do a job that had a positive impact on people's lives around me. I've always had the mindset of however long you have in this world, leave it better than you found it, or at least leave it better for your passing through it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's beautiful. Yeah. So you, because of your upbringing, and then you take police officers as somebody who can help you. It's somebody you reach out to ask for help, or when you are in need of help. But mostly, the society is, I get scared of a police officer. So why is that? Why you think? Because it's like a perception, and even you, it would be good to know when you enter a room without your uniform and people don't know who you are. And then when you tell, I'm a police officer, what's the reaction? You must have so many stories to share for that. But why is that? Why do we get scared of a police officer?
It's heartbreaking. It really is. Personally, I find it sad. You've seen it. I've seen it 1,000 times. You know, kids playing up in a shopping centre, and they'll say, you know, if you don't behave yourself, we'll go and get the police officer, and he'll take you away. And personally, I find that's a prejudice in its own form, because they don't know who that police officer is. Again, you look at the person that even said that, the parent, and my mind immediately goes to, what are your experiences of police? You know, how are you imparting that on your child? So yeah, again, you always look at the causes and the reasons why kids are educated that way. I think people in general see the law enforcement side of policing that is our role. You know, we enforce the law and everything, and if you do the wrong thing, then our role is to tell the court, pretty much. That doesn't put us above the public. That's just our role. That's what we do. And people don't, in today's society, don't appreciate or don't enjoy that level of scrutiny. If I want to drive down the street and send texts or do social media on my phone, then that's no one else's business. That's mine until I run into the back of another car. You know, so the scrutiny, I think, is the negative aspect of policing, that people see us as being confrontational, that we are that measuring stick. And sometimes I've seen, in my experience, sometimes we're the mirror. We're the mirror for the person, because I can't tell you how many times people have said, I'm not a crook. You know, I'm not a bad driver. I'm not a crook. I'm not irresponsible. I'm not this. I'm not that. And I said, well, I didn't say that. I did not say that. And I think that's where people get that perception from, that, you know, here's somebody that's actually observing what I do and making a determination whether that's the right thing or the wrong thing, because I am not a criminal. It's not how it works. You can't look at me and judge my actions because I'm not this person. Unfortunately, sometimes you were on your phone, or you were speeding, or you committed that offence. You
are in academy now, so you're training the next generation or next set of police officers. That's what you do. So what is your plan for yourself after this? Do you plan to continue doing that?
I would like to. So I've studied emergency management in the last 4 years. I'd like to take my skills and knowledge and abilities and experience and things to a consultative role, where I can actually consult to other external agencies and also government agencies as well, in emergency management, incident management, crisis response, that sort of thing. So it's in its embryonic form. It's still a thought bouncing around there, but that's what I'd like to do with it anyway.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I would like to wrap up this conversation with, if you could have one honest conversation with every person in Australia who has never trusted a police officer, what would you say to them?
Keep an open mind. Keep an open mind and understand that there is a human in the uniform. You know, I think sometimes that there's many levels of anonymity built into a uniform, you know, that we all wear the same kind of clothes and things. But by the same token, understand that we just have a role to play. It's very much an occupation, a job, a role, a responsibility. Probably the biggest is the responsibility. We have a responsibility. The community has entrusted us with their safety, and that's what our job is to do, to actually ensure their safety. You will find variations on personalities. You know, you will find an arrogant person in uniform. You'll find an arrogant person out of uniform. You will find an empath in a uniform. You will find a narcissist in plain clothes. It's not the job, it's the person. You know, so never assume that, you know, don't pigeonhole, don't label just because a person's wearing a uniform or a title. So,
wow, that's amazing. Thank you, John. It was such a pleasure talking to you and knowing you, the human side of you, which is what we uncovered today. And it's a very beautiful thing you said, like, leave the world better than how you found it. So that's my big takeaway from here. 30 years, thousands of interactions, and still the belief that one moment between two people can shift something. That's what I'm walking away with today. We live in a time where it's easy to reduce people to what they represent, the uniform, the title, the side they stand on, left or right. But today reminded me that every single person in every single role is carrying a story that most of us never ask about. Thank you to John for trusting me with yours, and thank you all for listening to Human After All. I am Sabika Jasmine. If you resonated with anything we discussed and touched on today, do share the episode with someone who needs to know the human side of duties, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening for more such human conversations. Until next time, stay curious about the humans around you.